Wyndham Clark is your champion. He is your U.S. Open champion. It was a pretty interesting tournament. Lots of heat for the golf course that was chosen, LA Country Club. I mean, it's golf, baby. Like, it's just, what? Who cares? You know, Wyndham Clark, I had to get off Twitter, by the way. Holy crap. The vitriol that came with Wyndham Clark leading this tournament. Like, what the hell's wrong with you people? Wyndham Clark is such a good golfer. Everyone praises him. Everyone knows he's a talented golfer. So it's kind of cool to see him win. A deserving champion. Rory's there in second place. You see him. Scotty's in third place. He kind of, I mean, really, we could all argue Rory didn't, you know, play up to his standards, but I could also say the same thing about Scotty. Like, I thought Scotty was going to win this tournament. I thought he was in prime position for how bad he was hitting it off the tee with those generous fairways. Crazy. But yeah, it was pretty exciting. Now, I don't really like to spend much time on doing like a breakdown of who finished inside the top 10. What I instead like to do is go to the bucket system to show you how well the bucket system did at the US Open. So then when I talk about the bucket system for the Travelers Championship, you're going to feel a little bit more confident in going by the bucket system or the sweet spot process in general. So the first thing that I want you to look at, or just to give you an understanding of the bucket system, I usually like to project out how many golfers from each bucket. You can see all the buckets I have here. There are 36 in total, 36 total buckets. I have projections for each of those buckets. These projections pertain to the golfers that are in those buckets and what I think will finish inside the top 10. So basically, this first bucket we're looking at last year, ones, my projection was there's going to be either somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers inside the top 10. Well, there we go. We have 4. So this is kind of my check point is over here. So we had 4. And because that was within the projection, that's a success. Now, again, there are 36 buckets. You can see there are 2 no's. That means 34 out of 36 buckets were correct. And when we look at one of these no's, you can see I'm projecting, again, over here. Always round down with the minimum, always round up with the maximum, by the way, in case you're confused with that. The projection is 1 to 3. There were 7 that finished inside the top 10, and that's fine. Hey, sometimes we're going to get way more. It only matters how many finish in the optimal lineup, truly. There were 4. So that was 1 over the projection. So that lies outside of the projection. That is why this is a no. Now you can see this column here, which is SSO, means Sweet Spot Optimal. I chose, or the Sweet Spot Optimal had 2, which did fall in line. By the way, the Sweet Spot Optimal, all the numbers here fall inside the projections. I like to create a Sweet Spot Optimal that follows the projections. And I always post it on my Twitter, by the way. If you're ever wondering where you can see that, I do it there. So you can see there are 2 no's. There's the 7K range down here. There were 7 7K golfers inside the top 10, which I thought was pretty remarkable. And then obviously with the tournament history, this bucket 2 for tournament history also failed, which is okay. We can still take down a GPP with the buckets, you know, with a couple buckets failing, but just to give you some more confidence in the bucket system, I think I'm running on about 20 weeks in a row where we haven't seen anything worse than 33 out of 36 buckets hitting. So it's in that 95% success rate. It's somewhere between 93 and 95% success rate. So the bucket system always hits, always hits. Now, one way to kind of compare how well the bucket system did, like, could it take down a GPP? That's the main reason that I do this every single week is, first of all, try to hit the optimal. But if you do hit the optimal, you're going to win a GPP because obviously the optimal is your perfect lineup. So we can review the optimal versus the GPP winning lineup, which is the Millie Maker. And then also kind of compare it to our Sweet Spot Optimal. So The optimal lineup. I'm actually trying to think of how should I do it? How should I do this? I think I'll keep it this way. The optimal lineup scored 552 points, left $400 on the table, and your optimal started with $9,900 McIlroy, $9,000 Cam Smith, and then we dropped to 4 7K golfers, including the winner, and 3 golfers below them. Now, there's actually a 4th golfer. I should say there are a total of 7 optimal lineup guys, because Minwoo Lee and Tom Kim both scored 81 points. And if you use their salaries to combine with the other golfers in the optimal lineup, you get less than $50,000 both times. The one here with Tom Kim, that's $49,600. You can see he's worth $7,800. Well, if you replace him with Minwoo Lee, it drops down to $48,800. Still uses 4 7K golfers with a 9 and 2 9Ks. So very interesting. Your Millie Maker lineup, by the way, scored 543 points. 543. Your optimal scored 552. That means there's a 9-point gap between those two. Meaning the guy who had the Millie Maker lineup is a pretty damn good lineup. That was McIlroy and Clark, Fowler and Fleetwood, English and Xander. Still follows the 2 9s and 4 7s. Remarkable. Now, when it comes to how well did the sweet spot process did, we take into account the bucket system, which was, 34 to 36 buckets correct. Sweet spot optimal follows all the other criteria. So let me go over that first, because it has to take into account the Marquee Tee Times. And that's it, actually. It's just the Marquee Tee Times. I was going to say something else, but has to take into account the Marquee Tee Times. And the Marquee Tee Times, basically you select 2 to 4 golfers. Actually, let me explain what the Marquee Tee Times are first. Your Marquee Tee Times are the best groups that are paired together. The best golfers that are paired together in their groups. It's rank ordered from top to bottom, and it's all based off of the sweet spot score that I have for each of the golfers. The lower their score cumulatively, the better the group number. So our number 1 group was Rahm, Victor Hovland, and Xander Schauffele. They all finished top 20. But my rule when it comes to the Marquee Tee Times, you select 2 to 4 groups and only 1 golfer out of each of those groups. We never pair guys up together. And again, I review this every single week. So our optimal lineup, you can see the little black tick marks here. They're all the golfers in our optimal lineup. And guess what? Neither one of them played together in the same group. We had Rory McIlroy in group 4, Ricky Fowler in group 5, Tom Kim in group 6, and Tommy Fleetwood in group 8. 2 to 4. We had 4. Another week, another success with the Marquee Tee Times. That's why I cover them. You also had 4 guys in the GPP winning lineup that weren't playing together either. So Rory was in group 4, Fowler in group 5, Fleetwood in group 8, and then Xander in group 1. So it followed the sweet spot process perfectly. And then you can also see the sweet spot optimal are these green highlighted salaries. Those were in the sweet spot optimal. Now that we see all of this, does the sweet spot optimal take down the Millie Maker? It does not. It scores 541.5 points. The Millie Maker scores 543. This was good enough for second place. And oh, by the way, someone had this in the Millie Maker. I would love if this was a sweet spot DFS listener or follower. If you are, let me know. It'd be wonderful, especially if you use the bucket system or anything like that to build your lineup. That'd be so awesome. But yeah, it used $50,000 of the salary, so you left $0 on the table. Again, this was good enough for second place. I think what second place was 200,000, or I don't even remember how much. Whatever second place is in the Millie Maker. It's heavily tiered. It goes from $1 million down to like 200,000 or something like that. It could be 400,000. I think it's 200. But either way, Sweet Spot Optimal did not take down a GPP. It didn't take down the Optimal. Therefore, we call the Sweet Spot process failed for the week, but second place is pretty good. And it, Marquee Tee Times were pretty good. Bucket system was pretty good. So all in all, for the US Open, pretty good. And that is how I review every single event. It's just to show you how well the SweetSpot process did, because then when we talk about the bucket system coming up for the Travelers Championship, you'll have more confidence with that. Also, in the live video that I do in Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, I cover building lineups.